Jumping in to embarrassingly dumb ways people died. A whole marathon. And this is from, you already see in the title. You already see in the title that this is going to be happening. So, without any further ado, let's get started.
Oh my god. Here we go again.
Here we go again.
With this series, there's literally no end to the amount of dumb, stupid, and straight up embarrassing ways that people have managed to remove themselves from the gene pool. So much so that we're now on to part 13 of this series. Well, strap in and get ready as we look at even more idiots who ended themselves in the most embarrassing ways possible. Juicy Jenga. Back in April 2022, a thirsty thief in the city of Calica, Italy, ended up in a situation that was more than he could swallow. On the Easter Monday, he decided to break into a clearly closed grocery store and grab himself a drink. But instead of pulling a bottle from one of the shelves, he chose to grab a bottle from a huge tower of crates that had been stacked up by the staff. And not just any bottle, one from a crate right in the middle. Anyone who's ever played Jenga knows this is a rookie error. And as you probably guessed, the entire stack collapsed, crushing him beneath all that water weight. He wasn't found until the next day when store staff had to go back through the CCTV footage to figure out what caused all this chaos. Well, one thing's for sure, he did a great job of winning this Darwin Award. Clown School.
Of course.
Can you juggle?
So not just get just one and be done. You want to get one from within the pack. Huh?
Swords,
Okay.
fire sticks, even chainsaws up into the air with confidence. Worst comes to worst, they can only really risk hurting themselves. Me, I'll use little beanbags, balls, maybe even eggs if I'm feeling extra spicy. But you know what smart people and even experts won't touch? Grenades. I mean, juggling grenades, that's the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard. No one would be dumb enough to do that, right? Right?
Right.
Let's rewind to 2001 and head over to Vinovic, Croatia, where a bunch of college students were having a big old party. One of them decided to try and impress his friends by juggling a few items, one of which was, you guessed it, a hand grenade. I'm honestly struggling to follow the logic here.
Why?
Having pulled the pin, he proceeded to juggle with
He pulled a pin.
explosive. Now, grenades work via a chemical reaction, giving the thrower a few precious seconds to get out of range before it explodes. This guy, for whatever reason, didn't think this applied to him, and the grenade exploded as he was juggling it. The blast injured 6 equally dumb onlookers, but our Darwin Award winner was removed from the gene pool completely. Well, he might have been acting like a clown. But
Besides, most of them, they was all drunk.
Circus. You know what you can do for kicks that's less dangerous than pulling the pin on a grenade for clout? Hitting those like and subscribe buttons.
Like who?
They won't explode. All done. Alright. What moronic...
I know some of these stores like fake and all that, but still though, you already know that there's going to be someone who is going to be playing with a grenade, doing some death-defying stunt.
Car wash. No, it isn't record a TikTok. It's don't get out of the car. No, seriously. Machinery in some of these places is incredibly powerful and can cause serious injuries or worse. Back in April 2022 in San Diego, a man drove into an automated car wash and then, without starting up the cycle, tried to get out of his vehicle while his car was still in gear. Apparently dragged by the vehicle, he ended up fatally pinned in between the left side of his car and the car wash machinery. But here's the thing. No one can explain why he decided to get out of the car. Was there a bee in there with him? Did he think the automated part of the wash meant he didn't need to be in his vehicle? Whatever it was, his car came out the other side of the washer, much messier than before. Pretty fly for a dead guy.
Well. I mean, hey.
November 2021, a student pilot from Houston, Texas was
should have been more prepared before getting out.
172 light aircraft for the first time ever. Absolutely exhilarated by the experience, he went out and bought himself a brand new plane, a Piper PA-28-140, despite not having a full license yet. His instructor clearly told him that he still needed more tutorage before he'd be able to fly solo regularly, and even more so before he could fly his new plane. However, our student wasn't one for rules. It turns out there are quite a few things student pilots can't do. These include fly with a passenger in the aircraft, fly at night without endorsement from the instructor, fly when it's foggy with limited visibility, and fly a different model of aircraft than what's on their license unless specifically endorsed by their instructor. Can you guess how many of these rules the student broke? If you guessed all of them, go get yourself a cookie. Yep, one very foggy evening, he decided to take a friend of his up in his brand new aircraft without telling his instructor.
What?
Roughly 4 minutes after taking off, unable to see properly, the plane clipped some nearby treetops, crashing moments later. Neither the student nor passenger
Why?
survived. Guess he wasn't as fly as he thought he was.
Like, why do people do this? Like, why?
Aboard the pain train.
Like,
I love
you think, is there a reason why,
Back
though?
on the 15th of December, 2009.
Like, for real. Even if, like I said, even if some of these stories are fake, still,
The
though,
subway driver was trundling
someone would
down the
actually do
street
this.
when suddenly he spotted the body of a man laying over the tracks. After getting over the shock, confusion set in. How had he gotten here? With the regularity of the trains, there was no way he could have hopped off a platform, run down the tracks, and made it as far as he did. Had he jumped off the back of a moving subway car? And if he had, then why? It didn't make any sense. Because there was no surveillance footage at the location, the police were stumped. But then they discovered that one of the cars on the subway train that had passed over the tracks before the driver discovered the body had a single smashed window. And suddenly it all made sense.
He jumped
This
out.
idiot had been alone in the subway car and decided, in all his brilliance, to swing from the handrail and smash one of the windows with his feet. After a couple of attempts, he succeeded, and then was promptly pulled out of the moving train thanks to the suction created by the train moving at speed through the tunnel. Nice. Real smart move there. Well, if ever you needed a really good reason
Was it
not to
worth it,
use
though?
public property, here it is.
Was it worth it?
Killer pain. There are people out there who will do just about anything to get their hands on a couple of potent pills, if you know what I mean. And I mean anything. Case in point, back in 2009, a Minnesota man figured that he could get his hands on some narcotic pain medication for free if he staged an accident and went to the hospital. Safe to say this guy wasn't the brightest bulb in the box. Nevertheless, he figured if he jumped out of a moving car, the injuries he sustained would ensure the doctors would have to give him the pain meds he craved. So our mastermind revved up his
What
car,
part of
started
that?
driving, and then jumped out of the moving
What
vehicle.
part of that is even a good
There was
idea?
just one
Where?
easiest way. It's
What
hard to ask
part?
for pain meds when you're dead. Yep, the injuries he sustained from this stupid blot were so severe he perished at the scene. Well, I haven't got any pain meds on me, but I do have the next best thing.
Man, broken every
Here you
bone
go,
in his
my
body.
guy. You can have this Darwin Award instead. Fireworks.
This is what happens when you be by yourself. You thinking this is a good idea. I'm glad I thought of it. It's foolproof, right?
Fireworks set against the glitter
This is why you need someone with you that actually knows
Yes,
common sense.
most types of fireworks are actually banned in Malaysia because of the flammable substances they contain. This means
Wow.
most fireworks displays are done illegally, and a lot of the locals don't know how they work, or how to use the industrial scale ones they can illicitly get their hands on. It was for exactly this reason that our next Darwin Award winner joined our ever-growing list. On 2005's Lunar New Year, a man was watching people set off industrial-scale fireworks that shot more than 150 feet into the air outside a club in suburban Kuala Lumpur. Curious, the man decided to get a better look at these powerful fireworks and bent face first over one of the launching tubes they were shooting out of. He was peering down the tube when one came screeching out into his face, sending him flying 30 feet backwards, giving him a few fatal head injuries. Now that's
A
what you
few?
call a celebratory send-off.
A few.
Need a lift?
A few. I'm surprised his head was still there.
For your job, but sometimes you have to watch just how far you go, as one janitor back in 1999 discovered. He was cleaning his building's elevator one day when he noticed something dripping from the ceiling. So eager to do a good job, he rode the second elevator up the shaft, climbed out a hidden service door, and stepped onto the roof of the first elevator. He began mopping up the puddle when all of a sudden, the elevator jolted. In his rush to get to the leak, he'd forgotten to immobilize the first elevator. Unable to do anything, the first elevator rose to the very top of the shaft, crushing him at the top. I don't envy the next janitor that had to clean up that mess.
Well, I'm gonna say it's pretty stupid, but he really cared about his job.
Because of its ability to conduct electricity, it's become an incredibly sought after building material, especially in the last few years. From January 2020,
But hey, like I said I was gonna go live again and do another live video.
Increasing from around
Just so you know, a little bonus, you know what I'm saying?
50 pounds per ton. This hasn't gone unnoticed by thieves, who have taken to stripping construction sites, buildings, even railways of the valuable material however they can. But not all these thieves work with Mission Impossible levels of precision during their raids, as one Scottish man proved back in 2001. The electric trains running across Glasgow collect power from an overhead cable. Any excess electricity is transmitted through a solid copper cable lining the rails, which is then routed to a distribution box. Our man, who appeared to have a good knowledge of these electrical systems, planned to saw this cable up in the time between the trains passing when no electricity was traveling through it. Pretty well thought out, and he might have gotten away with it as well, were it not for one small, tiny, insignificant issue. The timetable he'd based his brilliant plan on was out of date. As he was sawing, the train began approaching 10 minutes before he'd expected it to. Thousands of volts of electricity suddenly jolted through his body, charring him to a crisp. Let's hope would-be thieves out there take this as a sign. A pretty shocking one at that. Shot.
Puns.
I'd like to think I'm pretty good at breaking down stories and explaining things so that everyone can understand them. This is something that back in 1993, a police officer in Illinois reportedly attempted to do, but it ended the worst way just about anything can. Another officer from their precinct had accidentally discharged their firearm into their stomach, unintentionally ending themselves the week before. In trying to explain how that was possible to his fellow officer, our cop in question decided to reenact the scenario. The Darwin Award winner pulled out his gun, aimed it at his stomach, and pulled the trigger. The only issue was that he forgot there was a bullet in the chamber, and he didn't have the safety on. Apparently he didn't survive.
Oh,
no one in the
you
precinct
got
to
me.
reenact this reenactment. Shoot your shot.
You should have checked first, buddy, but I guess he stuck with assume.
Some of the weirdest in the entire country. From organizing mass Facebook events to shoot down hurricanes, to painting political messages on crabs, their bizarreness knows no bounds. Seriously, if it's a dumb idea, someone in Florida has probably tried it. Which is what brings us to our next entrant. Back in April 2022, 3 bored teenagers decided to cook up some fun by using some body armor and, in true American style, a handgun. It's not clear where they got the gun, but the teenagers took turns wearing the body armor and shooting each other, recording the whole thing and uploading it to Snapchat. I think we can all see where this is going. Yep, one of them donned the armor and laid himself out like a human target, but the
Now come on! Shoot me!
hitting him fatally in a part of his chest that wasn't covered by the vest. Panicked, the 2
How do you miss?
teenagers called an ambulance and reported the shooting. But then, in an even dumber move, they tried to delete the videos from their Snapchat and lied about what had happened.
Oh
It
wow.
didn't take long for an IT specialist to find the video, which made the entire situation look even worse than it already was.
Why?
Top tip here. If
Play
you're
a
bored,
game if you're bored.
Don't shoot your friends for Snapchat clout, and then dig your own grave by lying about it.
Oh
Considering
man.
these 2 are being tried as adults and could end
You
up
could have played a game.
behind bars. I'm going to give them 2 honorary Darwin Awards also. Nice one, boys.
Yeah.
Florida proud.
They deserve that. They deserve that.
MacBook mistake.
Could have played a game.
While I dragged those previous trigger-happy morons over the coals for their
Watch funny
dumbass
videos.
behavior, their stupidity is nothing compared to another bullet-related Darwin.
Here we go.
Back in March 2022, a
Again.
Russian soldier in an active Ukrainian war zone came across an abandoned MacBook. Now, he wanted the MacBook, but he didn't have anywhere on his person to store it. No problem, he thought. I'll just remove the ballistic breastplate of my body armor and put the MacBook in there. Now, for those who don't know, MacBooks can't stop bullets. You know what can? A specially designed ballistic breastplate. But hey, it wasn't like he was going to get shot in, I don't know, the active war zone he was in the middle of. Safe to say this stupid soldier didn't make it out of Ukraine alive.
No surprise.
The soldiers eventually retrieved his body. They not only found the MacBook, but they also apparently found a stolen iPad as well. From the moronic logic this guy was employing, I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to use the tablet as a helmet.
Genius. Fire
When police
ants?
arrived at
Oh
the
boy.
scene in Rome, New York, back in 2001, they struggled to understand what they were seeing. A woman's body was on fire in the grassy area adjacent to her home, and while there was a lighter and melted gas can discovered nearby, there was no immediate sign of foul play. Despite investigating the incident for months, the police turned up nothing and eventually came to the only logical explanation available.
Okay.
This woman had been smoking a cigarette and, according to her neighbors, indulging in her habit of dousing anthills in her yard with gasoline. While she was holding the gas can, an ember from the cigarette fell into the gasoline stream, which quickly ignited and traveled up the stream, bursting the can and immolating the woman in an instant. Guess that makes it Ants 1, Karen 0.
Really?
Super
Fire
stupid.
ants with gasoline and you smoking.
Are you down at the gym every day pumping iron? Or does your body look like it's been made out of toothpicks? Whatever it is, I think we can all agree there are very few people on Earth that possess the raw strength needed to stop a car in its tracks. With an average car weighing in at a little over
On
4,000
snow.
pounds, you need superhuman strength to go toe-to-toe with any metal beast. But that thought didn't come across one man's mind back in 2001. Apparently, having parked his car at the edge of a reservoir in Fresno, California, he got out only to watch as his car slowly rolled forward towards the water's edge. Now, the logical thing here would be to jump into the car and put it in park, right? Well, this guy had another idea. He leapt in front of the car as it rolled forwards, assuming he'd be
Why?
into some sort of immovable object. But he thought a bit too much of himself, and the car just rolled over him, hitting him beneath the water, and he didn't survive. But his story does serve as a reminder that man cannot win a fight against.
Well, at least his shoe survived.
He thinks he is.
Could have got in the car and immediately boom on the brake. Immediately.
When there are multiple stop signs,
No, let me get in front of the car, trying to stop it with pure muscle.
Though it wasn't
Okay.
for a taxi driver in Rio de Janeiro back in the year 2002. Having dropped off a fare at the Santos Dumont Airport, the taxi driver decided to follow the road around, assuming it'd lead away from the airport at some point. But soon he was confronted by sign after sign telling him he was actually approaching the runway. Flashing lights warned him a plane was on the runway and ready to take off, but apparently ignoring this, the taxi drove straight on. Despite the completely unobscured 737 passenger jet on the runway about to take off, he continued his journey behind it when both the plane's engines revved up. At their peak, each 737 jet engine can produce a huge 50,000 pounds of thrust. And as you probably figured out, a single taxi is no match for all that force. The engines blew the taxi away, flipping it more than 80 feet into the nearby sea. It was a brief journey that the driver didn't survive. I guess the moral of this story is,
There's
don't drive right behind a jet plane that's about to
there
take
is
off.
no way.
Is that not already given?
This is a real story. There's no way.
Falling for you.
There's no way.
Usually
You're
when
telling
you
me you're gonna
see
drive
there's safety tape blocking off an
behind the
airplane, it's a
airplane
pretty clear
when it's
sign
about
that
to take
you should
off.
avoid
Just
that
you're
area.
driving on the airway.
Doesn't matter what's happening inside, it's been blocked out
Why?
for an important reason. Well, despite this being a pretty universal understanding, back in 2004, there was a man in South Africa who
What gave you
decided to
the
ignore this
idea,
entire
thinking that's a good idea?
racism was. He was sitting in a cafe watching a team of lumberjacks across the way with loud chainsaws cutting down some large, heavy-looking trees. They'd cordoned off the area with tape, ensuring no one would be accidentally smushed by the falling timber.
Makes sense.
Despite this, our man suddenly made a beeline for the area, ducking under the tape to use the pavement to meet his girlfriend in a nearby shop. And at that exact moment, a huge tree the lumberjacks had quite clearly been working on came crashing down. Despite their frantic shouts, the guy ignored them and kept walking forward and was, and obviously, crushed by the tree. Crushed on the way to meet his crush. If it weren't so stupid, it'd almost be poetic.
Yeah,
All
stupidly
natural
poetic.
causes. I'm
Oh, well.
terrible at taking racy pictures. I never know what pose to strike or what lingerie to wear. Jokes aside, there was one man in Germany who definitely didn't have these issues. Not only was this guy happy to take photos of himself completely nude, but he also took these photos out in public. And we know this for the same reason he ended up with a Darwin Award. Back in September 2000, our man was in his birthday suit in the medieval city of Rothenburg, taking photos of himself on top of a high stone wall. He set up his camera on a tripod, hopped up on the wall, and started pulling a few poses when suddenly he lost his balance and fell 16 feet onto the ground below. The police apparently had to develop the film of the camera to piece this case together, and I bet they were hoping he'd accidentally left the lens cap on. A buttload of sherry. Alcoholism is a terrible disease. With an estimated 100.
It's amazing people do the dumbest things just to get a few clicks.
Some form of alcohol use disorder. But back in 2004, a man from Texas found a unique way to take his disorder to a whole other level. He had a throat ailment, which meant that swallowing anything acidic was quite a painful process. So he opted to take his liquor, rectally. Yep, this guy would give himself alcohol enemas. An enema is where you inject liquid into the rectum to stimulate the cleaning of the bowel. However, these liquids can also be taken into the body by way of the bloodstream, which is how our man opted to consume his spirits. One night he was planning to have one hell of a party by buying 2 1.5-liter bottles of sherry and hooking them up for a, butt chug?
Oh my.
Now usually when we've had enough to drink, we just stop drinking, or we pass out. Well, our guy had definitely had enough and passed out mid-alcohol enema. However, there was still a lot of sherry all up in his junk, which continued to be absorbed into his bloodstream long after he fell unconscious. By the next morning, he basically embalmed himself. Now, it's legal to drive if your blood alcohol content is below 0.08%. That's roughly 1 drink. At about 6 to 10 standard drinks in, your blood alcohol level is around 0.20%, and you generally need assistance walking. Vomiting and blacking out is also on the cards. Alcohol poisoning and a loss of consciousness sets in when your blood alcohol content is at around 0.25%, which is like consuming 20 to 30 standard drinks.
I don't think it's that serious. I don't think it's that serious to be drinking anything. I don't think it's that. I know it ain't serious. This man drunk. This man did some South Park type shit. He literally drunk
40%,
from the back side.
Irreversibly. And our Darwin Award winner's blood alcohol content was a staggering 0.47%. Wow, this guy must have had bowels of steel. Well, that's about it for this round of Darwin Awards.
Alright, yeah.
Much longer. If you want a part 14 of...
Alright, so, yeah. We'll be jumping into number...
I think after part 13 of this
14.
series, we'll be running low on accounts of people who embarrassingly removed themselves from the gene pool. And yet, unbelievably, here I am again with even more stories of idiots that ended themselves in the dumbest ways possible.
It's not serious.
From attempting to French kiss a rattlesnake to laughing in the face of gun safety, here's part 14 of our never-ending Darwin Awards.
It's not... I'm still calling the fact that this man drunk from the back. He drunk where the sun don't shine.
Favorites. But as far as dumb decisions go, this is probably the funniest dumb decision I've ever heard of. Back in 2009 in Pennsylvania, USA, a 17-year-old boy was rushed to A&E after claiming bullies had planted an explosive in his backpack. Obviously, the police were called, but the injuries he sustained didn't match his story. It was only then that the teen revealed what had actually happened. He'd gone rifling through his grandmother's possessions and found an M80 explosive, an American class of very large firecracker containing some 80 grams of flash powder. They were often used by the U.S. military to simulate grenade explosions, but they were banned for sale in 1966 by the Child Protection Act. And we're about to find out why. This idiot had taken the firecracker up to his room and, in a stunningly stupid move, began to repeatedly light and extinguish the fuse. However, during one of these insane cycles, he lit it up and couldn't put it out. Instead of throwing the explosive out of a window or as far away as possible, he instead jammed the thing between his thighs and put his hands over it to muffle the sound of the explosion.
What?
Big mistake. The resulting blast cost him his right hand, right leg, and most of his junk. Meaning while he survived, he lost the ability to reproduce and thus removed any future DNA of his from the gene pool. Ha! I think I just saw Darwin give this story a thumbs up from his grave.
You telling me that you are going to not throw... Basically, when you think about it, a grenade, right? But you're going to put it in between your legs to muffle the sound. Like, basically, I'm trying to make sure no one finds out about this idea. Like, where did you get these from? Why did you like this? You know, you could have hurt somebody, right? But no. Let me put it between my legs so that way no one can see or hear what's going on. Imagine you're muffling a grenade. You're muffling a grenade by putting in between your thighs to stop that. And now you're done. You're done. I hope it was worth it.
Up in flames.
I hope it was worth it.
There are some jobs that are obviously a little more dangerous than others. And back in 1819, no one had a riskier or more fantastical job than Sophie Blanchard. Also known as Madame Blanchard, she was a French aeronaut and was the first woman to work as a professional balloonist. She would ascend in a chair attached to hydrogen balloons to entertain huge crowds of people below her. Well, this was a time before the internet. I guess the French had very limited entertainment options. Sophie would regularly perform in the Tivoli Gardens, sometimes using pyrotechnics called blue light or bingle fire to really spice up her high-flying act. The only problem is that hydrogen is incredibly flammable, and people knew this, regularly warning Sophie about the danger of using pyrotechnics in her shows. But Sophie would not be deterred. And so, on the 6th of July, 1819, a particularly gusty day, Sophie ascended. She struck up her fiery display and waved down to the crowds when, all of a sudden, her balloon caught alight. The fire spread quickly, Hindenburg style, and she began to descend rapidly. She seemed calm, but then the wind caught her draft, blowing it out of the gardens and into the side of several nearby buildings, which is when she fell, fatally. Not exactly the blaze of glory she was aiming for, I bet. Can it? It's not often that you guys send me your own stories.
She did what she always wanted to do.
Called Collie Carney got in touch with a
Go out screaming.
Definitely deserves a Darwin Award of its own. Back in 2015, Collie's neighbor was bored. So bored that the only thing they could think of to alleviate their boredom was to grab their trash can, lay it down on the road, and hop inside it. They then used it to sled down the street like the world's worst toboggan. However, unlike a toboggan track, a road has cars, which Collie's neighbor quickly discovered. Their trash can soon collided with an oncoming car and was yeeted into the side of someone's house. They didn't survive, but they did prove that sometimes the trash takes itself out. Do you have any Darwin Award-winning stories of your own? Let me know down below, or if it's a bit lengthy, send me a message.
Y'all let me know.
Dude,
I know some of these stories are true, but what was, out of all the videos you saw from these types, what was like the dumbest story, dumbest moment you have seen from throughout the dumbest ways to die, from part 1 to like recent? Cause I don't. There's no way. I know some of these are fake. I know they are, cause there's no way you would be that dumb enough to go through this plane. There's no way.
This is another level of drunk, and one that didn't last long. The bears, Masha and Misha, wasted no time making a meal of the idiot, and it was only in the morning that the zookeepers discovered him, half-eaten and wholly dead. They figured that he must have been under the influence because, in their words, only an idiot would walk into the bear enclosure. Well, stuff can be two things. What's to say this guy wasn't drunk and an idiot? Good boy.
Worst combinations.
Back in 2002,
Worse.
on the 29th of July, a TV channel in Ukraine reported on a story from the suburbs of Luhansk that nobody watching could believe. Late that evening, a deputy of the local administration board had been out walking his dog when he encountered a young police cadet. The cadet was escorting two women home in the dark and noticed the dog wasn't on a lead or wearing a muzzle. So doing his duty, the cadet informed the deputy that what he was doing was illegal. The deputy, having been upstaged so publicly, began to argue with the cadet. Things were getting tense, but the situation really escalated when the deputy suddenly revealed he had an RGD-5 grenade, pulled the pin, and hurled it at the cadet.
Whoa!
Rational response there. But because his dog wasn't on a lead or wearing a muzzle, the deputy's faithful four-legged friend ran to retrieve the grenade like a ball and brought it back to him. Master and dog, sadly, both met an explosive fate.
No! Not the dog!
There aren't enough.
He was a good dog too. Oh, the dog wanted to play fetch. Oh, now I feel sad.
Also, set fire to them. reasoning that this helped the owners claim insurance. But this horrendous habit would eventually become his own downfall. Back in 1998, our arsonist and a few friends decided
that was like the saddest death ended so far.
Soon after, it was reported stolen to the police, so as usual, he planned to set the vehicle ablaze by lighting a fire in the passenger seat. However, he didn't know that the door handle on the driver's side of the cab was broken. So when he tried to get out, he quickly discovered he was trapped.
You telling
His
me?
friends tried to get him out, but the door was locked and the fire quickly burned out of control. Police found him the next day. Apparently, he was charred to a crisp. Charred to a crisp. Idiot confinement. We all know
You're gonna pour gasoline inside the vehicle, light it on fire, then get out. All right.
Much like this next award winner. Back in 2015, a Croatian criminal who'd been jailed for repeatedly threatening his ex-girlfriend was put in the prison solitary.
Now get in, you freaking scumbag.
Not a fan of his new padded pad, he decided to force the guards to pay attention to him by pulling out a lighter he'd smuggled in and setting fire to the cushion pads lining the walls, ceiling, and floors. He expected the guards to come back to get him out immediately, but 20 seconds later, no one was coming. 40 seconds later, he was still on his own, and the fire was growing. After a minute, he began to panic as the room was starting to fill with smoke and flames. All too late, he realized he'd set fire to a room that was completely flammable, and the guards simply wouldn't notice in time. Well, that's one way to serve a life sentence. Man versus true. Back in 2004, police were called to the scene of an accident around the back of a house in Georgia, USA, that left them, in a word, stumped. A large tree
Stupidity at its finest. Well, one of stupidity at its finest, actually.
Inside the truck was a body burned beyond recognition, but the entire scene didn't make any sense. The tree had fallen onto the truck instead of away from it, which is what they would have expected if the two had collided. But why would they have collided behind a house? And what had started the fire? Slowly but surely, the puzzle pieces came together. It appeared that the gentleman behind the wheel of the truck had been attempting to remove the tree from the yard by tying the truck to the tree and flooring it. He'd assumed the tree would use some sort of cartoon physics and fall away from the truck, but because we live in reality, the tree fell in the direction of the applied force and landed on top of the truck, crushing the driver. The engine overheated, setting both the truck and tree ablaze, and the rest is Darwin Award-winning history. Getting shredded. Hiring a tree surgeon to trim back or cut down.
I mean, that's like the most old school way to
yourself can end up costing even more.
cut a tree or bring a tree down.
Instead of paying a professional, he'd hired an industrial tree shredder and placed it at the base of an old oak tree in his yard, which had recently been struck by lightning.
Okay.
He was planning on cutting away the dead section of the tree himself by climbing up and trimming it away, dropping any stray branches down into the hopper beneath him. Only thing was he hadn't used harnesses, safety equipment, or, well, anything to secure himself to the tree.
He had nothing.
So entirely unsecured, he clambered up the ladder, stepped down onto a branch, and began cutting away when suddenly he lost his footing and fell straight into the shredder. Yikes. Well, on the plus side, I bet he made for a very moist mulch.
Boy got shredded.
Cambodia has seen its share of violence and explosions following the historic...
Turn into meaty Rubik's Cubes.
But in 1999, 10 years after the war ended, an explosion in a cafe in Spain
Meatloaf
caught the attention of the tabloids. According to witnesses, 3 regular frenemies were drinking heavily at a cafe and exchanging insults with one another when one of them, clearly disgruntled, suddenly pulled out a Claymore landmine and threw it under the table.
What?
He drunkenly explained he'd found it in his backyard and wanted the men to play the ultimate game of Russian roulette with it.
Ultimate game? Ultimate game of speed?
These 3 intoxicated idiots began stabbing on the pressure trigger explosive in an attempt to set it off. Several minutes and stamps later, the bomb detonated, taking all 3 men with it. Well, they say you can take out 2 birds with one stone, or in this case, 3 idiots with one landmine. Leveled crossing.
Why they got them looking like I'm gonna kick it first before you guys?
The most common day of the U.S. tax filing deadline. But back in 2001, this fell on a Sunday, meaning there were limited post.
Because I remember there was a video like that before with a landmine and
ouch. This was something a man from Tennessee desperately wanted to avoid, and so he was in his car racing to the post office in the hopes of submitting his taxes on time. But as he was driving, he noticed a slow-moving train heading for a crossing which would have blocked his route for several minutes at least. In an attempt to avoid this, he floored it and sped over the crossing just before the train reached it. But as he did so, crash!
Crash!
The car racing from the other direction was also trying to beat the train, and the two collided. One driver perished and the other was wounded, but by some cosmic miracle the crash occurred just to the side of the tracks, so the train passed by unimpeded, and no passengers were injured. Well, I guess these idiots proved that trying to beat an active train crossing is taxing, to say the least. Getting airtime.
Could have just
If
waited.
you've ever been to Holiday World
Patience is a virtue, you know.
in Indiana, USA, then you probably know the Raven. This big old bird-themed wooden roller coaster has a peak height of 110 feet and a top speed of 50 miles per hour. Not exactly the tallest or fastest coaster out there, but still super fun nonetheless. However, back in 2003, one woman made a superbly dumb decision.
Having the time of my life.
Riding the Raven with her fiance, the pair of roller coaster enthusiasts had their lap bar and seatbelts checked by staff before the coaster set off. But a few moments later, she undid her seatbelt, tucked the two sides into the cushions of her seat, and wriggled out of the lap bar.
What?
She wanted to stand up as the coaster went down the drops in a bid to catch what roller coaster enthusiasts refer to as airtime. But during the fifth drop,
Look at her like, are you insane?
she lost her footing.
Do
and
you
was
want to die?
on the edge to her demise. Gee, it's almost like the safety restraints were there for a reason.
Bro, what? I'm thinking like she was, I don't know, like, okay, let's say like a friend driving a car and she's standing up, all like this and that or whatever. But no, 10 times more terrifying. No, let me take off my safety equipment that keeps me strapped down on a moving roller coaster that does circles and loop-de-loops and all. No, let me stand up like I'm doing a Titanic pose and everything. You know what I mean? Like, what? Oh. I mean, hey, living life, right?
People who hurt animals on purpose belong in a special circle of hell.
Yes.
And as it would happen, this next story, while involving a dog who was likely abused by its owner, ends humiliatingly for said owner. That means I get to immortalize him here for the entire world to laugh at. So let's rewind to 2008 and head over to upstate New York.
All
A
day.
50-year-old man was bird hunting alongside a few of his buddies with his faithful canine companion at his side. Suddenly, the dog found a deer leg bone and began chewing on it. The owner tried to take it away, but the dog refused to give up its bone. Frustrated, the hunter began to wield his shotgun like a club, swinging the butt of it at the dog. Each time he did, the dog dodged. That was until this idiot slammed the butt of the shotgun into the ground. The shock triggered the gun to fire, with the muzzle pointed directly at his stomach. The huntsman was airlifted to the hospital, but didn't make it, though he did live just long enough to confirm this account to the police. Well, what can I say? At least the dog got to keep its bone. Midnight Mess. North Carolina is an American state that allows a lot of different types of gun ownership. And while most people are careful with the way they use, handle, and store their guns,
Hey, look on the bright side. At least the dog will find an actual good owner.
In 1992, during the very early hours, a man in the town of Newton was woken by the sound of the landline telephone ringing next to his bed. Sleepily, in the darkness, he grabbed the phone and put it to his ear. Only it wasn't the phone he grabbed, but the handgun on his bedside table. For some reason, this incredibly sloppy gun owner had left his handgun there with the safety off, and when he brought it up to his ear, accidentally pushing the trigger down in the process, boom. So for any gun owners watching, don't leave your gun with the safety off, unless you too want your gun to double up as the world's worst alarm clock.
Wow.
Honorable mention, French hiss. Now, it wouldn't be a Darwin Award video without at least one insane story heralding from the state of Florida. We've covered plenty of crazy stories from this state before, but this next one might just be the weirdest yet. Back in 2017, a man from Putnam County discovered a rattlesnake on his property. So he did the responsible thing and put it in a tank with the intent to release it somewhere far away the following day. Surprisingly responsible for a Florida man story, right?
Yeah.
Meantime, he told his neighbors what he found, who had a less responsible reaction. They immediately...
You found a snake? Oh, I gotta see this.
Said he was going to kiss it on the mouth. I'm not sure what he thought was going to happen, but as he puckered up for a big open-mouthed snaky smooch, the rattlesnake did what you'd expect it to. It bit him on the tongue. Now, rattlesnake venom is nasty, and in the right doses, it can cause numbness, swelling, nausea, difficulty breathing, and even death. And so, as this guy's tongue and throat started to swell up, he was rushed to the hospital and put in a protective coma state for a few days. Miraculously, he survived. So sadly, no Darwin Award today. But with any luck, this
Darn.
was an idiot.
I don't get a trophy.
Forcing himself on deadly animals. Consent is key, my dude. High life. Helium can be hilarious.
I mean, there's people who actually kiss an animal,
travel through it much quicker.
regardless of what kind of animal it is.
I could listen to this forever. But helium shouldn't be inhaled for too long, because even though it's a gas, you still need oxygen to breathe. Which is a very basic science lesson that these two next award winners apparently missed out on. Back in 2006 in Tampa Bay, Florida, two 21-year-olds spotted a huge promotional balloon 8 foot in diameter used to advertise condominiums for Lakeview at Calusa Trace. It was late and quiet, and so they decided to pull the huge balloon down and get it sighted for maximum high-voiced humor. They cut it open and shoved their top halves inside as the balloon gradually deflated, enjoying the squeaky high notes. But it didn't last long. You see, when our lungs are filled with helium, it means we're not filling them with oxygen, which our organs rely on. Depending on how much helium is inhaled, a person can lose consciousness quickly and die from lack of oxygen, also known as asphyxiation, which is exactly what happened. Dizzy and confused, these two idiots lost consciousness and were only found the next morning when a local sheriff spotted the bottom halves of their bodies sticking out from the deflated balloon. Well, at least they ended on a high. A burning problem.
I love how he throws in jokes at the end. I do.
Bravery. Being brave and being stupid aren't mutually exclusive terms, as the Sequoia Volunteer Fire Department in Tennessee proved back in 1999. This supreme team of 7 idiots were bored, having not received a call for help in over 2 months. And so they started up a dangerous habit of using gasoline to light fires in vacant houses in a rural part of Chattanooga. They'd then rush in, put out the blaze, and pretend to be heroes. But this incredibly dangerous ruse all fell apart one day when one of them, who sprayed gasoline in the attic, didn't realize the others had already started the blaze. The fire spread so quickly it trapped the wannabe hero in the attic, where he met his demise. When the real firefighters and police were called in, they realized all too quickly what had been happening. The 6 accomplices faced a combined total of 60 years in prison. Man, I don't think there's enough water on Earth to cool that burn. Love in the cockpit. Let's fly back in time to 1991 Florida.
They tried to be heroes.
Simulated instrument flight. This is where a literal hood is placed over the eyes of the pilot, and they fly using only the instrument on the dashboard. It's a fairly standard practice.
Why is he blindfolded?
On this day, witnesses noticed that while in the air, the aircraft's right wing suddenly failed before it dived down and crashed. Neither pilot survived. People began to wonder what could have caused such a tragic accident. Had both pilots been wearing a hood? Was the plane defective? Was it on purpose? Well, on closer inspection of the crash, a few things became clear. The front right seat was in a fully reclined position. Neither pilot was wearing their seatbelt, and both were only partially clothed. Further examination revealed no rips or tears to any zippers or buttons, so it appeared that the pilots had removed their clothes themselves, used the fully reclined seat as a bed, and, tried to join the Mile High Club, if you get my drift. Flying the plane, it began to move erratically, leading to the wing failure and eventual crash. Guess you could say they were victims of the ultimate high.
Like you could have waited till we got home or something?
I imagine there'd be a few essential
or a near hotel?
Sheesh. Right? Things like, what valuables will they have? Will there be many people around, or will they be well armed? Alternatively, you can contemplate none of these things and just wing it, like our next Darwin Award winner did. Back in 1990, our would-be criminal made the big brain decision to target a gun store located near Seattle, Washington. Did he do this early in the morning or late at night when it'd be a little quieter? No, he went for 4:40 in the afternoon when the store was super crowded. He waltzed in, fired a few wild shots into the air, and announced to everyone in no uncertain terms that he was robbing the joint. Now,
Alright, I want to talk about this one. So, you're going to rob a gun store when there's people in there. You couldn't have did this at night. It makes more sense for a crook to rob a place at night because one, there's nobody there. We closed it down. You make your way in, and boom, you got the money and the guns and the ammo, and you're out. But no, I want to go into a gun store. Like, no, hear me how stupid this sounds. Hey guys and gals, I'm gonna rob a gun store when it's crowded. And wait, is that a cop over there? I know you can't really see. There's a cop on right there on my screen, right there. There's a cop, look like a cop right there. But it doesn't matter. You're robbing a gun store, and there's people in there. And let's say there's like 4 or 5 people got guns. And you know what? Let's all aim our guns at this dumb motherfucker over here. Because this person wants to rob the gun store.
Well, being a gun store, this place attracted a certain type of patron. You know, the type that really likes guns. And it was only after he fired off his shots that he noticed a uniformed policeman having coffee with the store owner. Yep, our criminal had also managed to miss the police car parked outside the store.
How do you miss that?
People being held up pulled out their own firearms and let loose on the road.
They lit him up. Like, who in the fuck?
Was put down, and amazingly, no one else in the store was injured. Considering just how dumb this guy was, I'm amazed he was holding the gun the right way around. Which of these endings did you think was the most idiotic?
That one. No, that one was probably the most idiotic. That was like the most idiotic one. You're gonna rob. I'm still baffled by that. You're gonna rob a gun store, right? I'm gonna rob a gun store, and it's gonna be early in the fucking morning. I'm not early. It's gonna be in the afternoon where there's everybody there. When there's everybody there, I'm gonna rob it, and knowing there is a police car before you go in there. So I don't know how you missed that, but all right.
Well, here we are again.
Number 15. Okay, number 15. One more to go, y'all. Woohoo! Yeah, alright.
Seriously? 15 whole videos?
That was probably the dumbest one.
Protected our gene pool by removing them.
I mean, I've seen a lot of dumb videos, but that was probably the dumbest one.
And there's still no end in sight? Wow. I guess human stupidity really doesn't know any bounds. With that, let's take a look at even more Darwin Award winners and the ridiculous ways they achieved their prize.
But hey,
Florida Man Down. Back in June 2022, over in Largo, Florida.
I'm just thinking people do the dumbest things though, just to get attention. Congratulations, you have achieved that.
Frisbee golf? As the name suggests, it's like golf, but instead of a ball, you have a frisbee, and instead of holes, you have these basket things.
What?
A more weirdly American sport has never existed, and I've been to a hot dog eating contest. Anyways, the game was progressing pretty normally when someone accidentally flung their frisbee off course into a nearby lake. Now, Florida is famously home to some 1.25 million alligators. Because of this, almost every body of fresh water across the state has signs warning people not to step foot in the water, lest they fancy becoming an alligator snack.
Yum.
Despite this, a gentleman who we'll call Florida Man decided in his infinite wisdom to wade right on in and grab the disc. Gators be damned. This was not his first time in the waters, though. He'd repeatedly waded into this lake in the past to fetch lost frisbees and resell them back to their owners, despite being warned not to do so multiple times.
Oh, I'm not scared of him. I'm not scared of him.
Because before he could find the frisbee, an alligator found him.
Give me that.
Well, all I can say is, if you play stupid games, like fetching frisbees from alligator-infested waters, you win stupid prizes. Like being eaten by alligators.
Hope it was worth it.
Idiot energy.
I hope it was worth it.
A gentleman from South
But hey, he did a good thing. He fed a gator.
The first time. He carefully researched all the equipment he needed, bought a few boards and paddles for himself.
He fed some gators today.
To a beach in Hampshire.
Well, that day.
He'd specifically chosen this beach because he knew the waters would be calmer, giving him a better chance to get to grips with the board. All seems like a very sensible, logical way to go about things, doesn't it?
Yeah,
That
right?
is until you learn that this guy couldn't swim.
He can't.
Also, he hadn't bothered to put on a life jacket. And then, to add the cherry on top of this idiot's sundae, he paddled more than half a mile out into open water.
8
When
kilometers.
he tried to turn the board around, he suddenly fell off.
What?
Unable to get a grip on the board,
Butterfingers.
his inability to swim and the lack of a body-affixed flotation device ended up causing his demise. To make matters worse, his wife claimed that the lack of Coast Guards on the beach was the main reason he didn't survive. While that may be a part of it, I'm pretty sure a fatal lack of common sense was more to blame here.
You can't swim. And I'm going to go. First off, you can't swim. Second of all, you're going to like the deep. Like you're going to like in like the ocean. You're 8 kilometers away from shore. You're away from shore. First of all, if I can't swim, why would I even go near water like that? Why would I go to a pool? Why would I go to a lake, the beach? I can't swim. So why would I go to a place where I can't swim? Why? And then you don't have no life jacket. And then there ain't no Coast Guards either. So you're just drowning. You are drowning, mister. You are drowning, ma'am. You can't swim and you didn't bring no protection with you because, oh, it's fun. I don't get it. I guess it's stupidity. That's why I don't get it.
I love me a good barbecue. The part I don't enjoy is waiting for the coals to be hot enough to cook on. Yeah, I know. It only takes like 15 minutes to light him up and get him scorching hot, but this little fatty wants his burger now.
I want my meat.
And it turns out I'm not the only impatient one. Back in July 2022, a man from Erfstadt, Germany was driving along when all of a sudden he lost consciousness. His car came to a stop when it hit the side of a house and the local fire brigade was called. They assumed this guy had fallen asleep at the wheel and caused the accident, but when they got there, the unmistakable smell of charcoal filled their noses. And when they opened the back doors of the car, out fell several small barbecue grills with glowing coals still in them. After extinguishing the coals, the firefighters found beer, speakers, beer benches, and crockery inside. It turned out the idiot driving was a cook who supposedly gave barbecue seminars. Apparently in a rush to get from one appointment to the next, he hadn't bothered to extinguish the still glowing coals in the kettle grills, which he loaded into the back of his car. Now, when they're burned, grills release a colorless and odorless toxic gas called carbon monoxide, even when they're not smoking, which is why having a coal barbecue in an enclosed space is always a bad idea. After a while, this guy's car had filled up with the toxic gas, causing him to pass out and crash. Clearly, his barbecue course didn't cover the basics of barbecue.
You would think, I know this is a dumb idea, but you would think that maybe if I tried this, maybe if I would
taking a pre-workout
put the roll the window down,
great.
all
A
4 of
single
them.
contains everything you need to boost your energy
If you're gonna go with this dumb idea,
vitamins, carbohydrates, and around 175 milligrams of the stimulant caffeine.
like I just couldn't wait no more.
And 4 cups of coffee. Now that's liquid motivation. However, these supplements can be expensive, so some people resort to just buying caffeine powder and making their own liquid get-up-and-go juice. At least that's what one man in the UK tried to do back in 2022. He'd bought some caffeine powder to add to his homemade pre-workout drink, and because it hadn't come with a measuring cup or scoop, he decided to use some basic kitchen scales to measure out 300 milligrams of the stuff. That's about 6.5 very strong coffees.
Why?
Definitely not advised.
Why, man? Why would you do
a fatal
that?
dose. But the scales he was using weren't in milligrams. They were in grams. The lowest weight he could measure on them was more than 6 times the maximum recommended dose. And it's believed, without realizing the metrics were wrong, he measured out close to 300 grams, more than 200 coffees worth of caffeine, and consumed it. Within minutes, he was on the floor in the grips of a severe caffeine overdose, one he didn't survive. Now, the caffeine levels in the blood of a person who drank 1 cup of coffee would be 2 to 4 milligrams per liter of blood. A post-mortem revealed that this guy's caffeine levels were 392 milligrams per liter.
Yeah, you're done.
This one goes out
You're
to all
done,
you women
son.
out there. Double, triple, quadruple check your supplement metrics. Or be like me and stick to having a pre-workout coffee on the couch. And then staying there. Much safer. Poor life choo-choo choices. It's
Delicious.
not just consuming self-made workout energy drinks that'll earn you a Darwin Award, though. Advertising them can result in an equally dumb demise, if this next entrant is anything to go by. Back in January 2015, a male fitness model in Burbank, California, decided he wanted to shoot a promotional video for an energy drink company he'd co-founded. But instead of shooting something like a big burly guy in a gym lifting weights with one hand, chugging his energy drink with another, our man wanted something different. He wanted to really train. No, sorry, I read that wrong. He wanted real trains. He planned to make it look like drinking this drink would give you the power to outrace a literal train. The only problem is that a shoot like this is expensive and requires a lot of paperwork. But going for a more brawn over brain approach, our man figured he and his team could just trespass onto a restricted area of the Metrolink tracks and shoot the commercial hassle-free.
Outrun a
His plan was
train.
to run on a set of tracks that were parallel to the trains coming up behind him, so shot from the side it would only look like he was running ahead of the train. But here's the kicker. This particular section of railway was on a blind bend, so until the train was around the corner, there was no way of knowing which set of tracks it would be using.
Oh,
Nevertheless,
man.
the model man shouted
And why are you still running?
with the train quickly catching up behind him.
Why are you still
Despite
going
the
along
blaring
with
sound of
this?
The train's horn, our man just kept running in a straight
Why?
line until the train ran over him. This
Ah.
time to mention that semi-realistic CGI effects are pretty cheap these days.
Why?
Like, I know a
Why?
guy who'll edit you into a train chase scene for like $20. No, sorry. I was too busy over here flexing my brain, not my muscles. Protein powder problems. What? Another gym bro workout supplement?
I know.
Story?
I know that that was a fake
Back
one.
in
I know it
February
was.
2022,
But
early
still, though,
morning, a
I
young
would not
man
be
was
surprised
driving
people do
along
stuff
the
like
road on the
this
outskirts of San
just
Diego.
to be
Without
famous.
warning, he veered off to the side of the road, hitting a parked vehicle and causing a 6-car pileup. Okay, at this point, I want you to take a guess at why he veered off the road. Was he looking at his phone? Had he fallen asleep? Was he attempting to open a packet of protein powder, take out a scoop and pour it into a cup of water he had in his lap while mixing it with a knife? Well, if you guessed that last one, give yourself a cookie. When rescuers arrived at the scene, they opened the guy's door to find protein powder all over the vehicle. It coated the seats, the
Bro,
dash,
like
the
he been
airbag,
just
the
straight
fluid
having
crash,
sex
and
with
the knife,
cocaine.
which, as he'd been distractedly using it to had been propelled back by the airbag and into his body. Fatally. Luckily, no one else was injured. Okay, several takeaways from this story. 1. Don't mix your protein powder while you drive. 2. Don't hold a knife while you drive. And 3. Always take your workout supplements with a liberal dose of common sense. TikTok trouble. A lot
TikTok.
of good things have come from the video
Trouble.
sharing of TikTok, such as fun dances and wholesome viral stars. But it's also provided the catalyst for a lot of incredibly dumb trends, just for likes and views. Often, the more extreme these are, the more views they receive. But they can be so pointlessly dangerous, many of them have been banned from the platform. But back in November 2022, one wannabe TikTok creator went viral for all the wrong reasons. Deciding he needed to add a little edge to his next TikTok dance, a man from Texas, in all his infinite wisdom, decided to get up on top of an 18-wheeler and then began to record himself dancing while the truck was moving.
Of course.
The driver of the truck had no idea, and so he continued on his route as per usual. This included driving across Houston's US 59 East X Freeway, a route with several overpasses. Other drivers soon noticed the TikTok terror, watching as he ducked down to avoid being hit by some of the overpasses. But he was too focused on his dance
Right, I'm
moves
getting
that
that
Scott
views, baby.
He was probably knocked off the top of the truck and into moving traffic, which obviously he didn't survive. I want to say this was an accident, but part of me wonders if he started the video like, Darwin Award achievement check.
Right.
Lord have mercy on this idiot.
Whole
There
selfie.
are a lot of people out there who claim to be the reincarnation of the big JC, Jesus Christ, but none have ever definitively proved that they are. which is what one pastor from Zambia was about to change. Back in 2021, this guy promised to prove to his congregation that he was the reincarnation of the Son of God by recreating one of Jesus' famous heavenly abilities.
Oh, really?
You assume he'd choose something with minimal risk, like turning water into wine or walking on water.
Right.
No, of course not. He demanded his congregation bury him alive and then dig him up 3 days later, mimicking JC's famous resurrection. So as instructed, the church members dug him a grave, tied his hands together, and buried him. He remained there, as the good book said, for 3 days. And when he was exhumed on the 3rd day, something
He a zombie.
unbelievable happened.
Get the
He
gun.
was alive. He'd done it. He'd really done it. He is risen. He obviously didn't do this. The pastor did not, in fact, survive 3 days buried in 6 feet of earth with no air. Not exactly a surprise. And was very much stuck in the pre-resurrection stage. His congregation members were arrested, with several still on the run for their hand in this prophetical failing. If only he'd stuck to not turning water into wine.
Right? That's one of the basic things to do.
When it comes to big
Turn water into wine, walk on water. Okay, fine. Get those wrong. I'm not Jesus Christ.
Well, if
I'm not the reincarnation of Jesus Christ.
They might still be with us. Back in July 2022, news outlets all over the world began reporting on a story from Athens, Greece, where a tourist was struck down by a helicopter rotor after getting too close to the blades while trying to take a selfie with the vehicle.
Of course.
News outlets quickly ran with the sensational
Why
story,
not?
but it turned out that they were wrong about one key thing, and the real story was far more baffling. The tourist in question had been riding as part of a group on the helicopter, and after it landed, had disembarked with the others and was chaperoned to a nearby lounge safely. However, appeared to be calling someone on his phone, left the lounge, and made a sudden beeline back to the helicopter, without telling anyone anything. As he approached the still-running vehicle, ground staff suddenly clocked him, shouting for him to stop. But over the noise of the helicopter, he couldn't hear them, nor could he see how fast the rear rotor was spinning. The pilot, who was wearing headphones, only heard the ground crew shouting right as the tourist made the unthinkable decision to duck under the tail section of the aircraft, but misjudged how close he was to the whirring blades and was fatally caught by the tail rotor. So it wasn't down to a seriously stupid selfie. But what the heck possessed him to go back to the helicopter, let alone duck under the tail and get that close to the blades? Maybe he'd forgotten something on the helicopter. Maybe he wanted to see the helicopter from the other side? Maybe. I don't know. I'm out of ideas. What do you think he was doing? Let me know down in the comments below. Gee whiz. Manual labor is no easy profession. It's a lot of long hours.
Tell you, man, in this generation, the phone is literally your heart.
It ain't for the faint of
Where
heart,
you
or
go, the
just
phone
brain,
goes
considering how many
immediately.
dangers you can find on an active site. Which is why this next guy's employment in the field shorted out, shall we say. Back in 2020 in Dehradun, India, a laborer for the Uttarakhand Power Corporation decided to take a leak. Because he was on the job, he figured he shouldn't go far, and so found a pole to relieve himself next to. But this guy must have forgotten where he was and that he was working for a power company.
Yeah.
There was a pole that was right next to an
All the
electrical box.
electricity.
As soon as he let the string rip onto the box, a fatal bolt of electricity surged up it and through his body, frying him instantly. Well, whether you work for a power company or not, I think we can all agree that we're going to be checking where we whiz before we whiz from now on.
What was that? Don't you
Fall
whiz on the electric fence. Yeah.
When you're doing something as dangerous as canyoneering, the activity of exploring canyons, and California's
Don't
aptly
whiz
named
on
Death
the
Valley,
electric
having the right
fence.
equipment isn't just advised, it's crucial. Otherwise, you might end up like this next guy. Back in December 2022, having planned a solo canyoneering trip, our man went by himself to rappel down one of Death Valley's many canyons when he suddenly realized his rope was too short.
Oh.
Instead of admitting defeat and heading out of the park to find somewhere that might sell him a longer rope, he had a big brain moment. He could use a piece of webbing to lengthen his rope and make it down to the bottom. Now, webbing is a sort of strap often used to secure things like backpacks. It's not designed to be used as climbing equipment. Nonetheless, he extended the makeshift rope and, happy with it, began his descent. However, when he reached the knot where the rope met the webbing, He had to briefly disconnect his rappel device in order to get over it. And it was here, while he wasn't secured to the wall or the rope thanks to his own harebrained design, that he suddenly fell 30 feet to his demise. At least now we all know how not to go canyoneering. Get it? Not? Like the knot yeah, the dad jokes aren't going to get any better. They're the most stable part of my personality. Deal with it. Pour one out. Alcohol has a few properties that it's famous for. For one, it's a depressant, meaning it inhibits or depresses the response of the central nervous system, which is why you slur your speech and can't walk straight when you've had one too many. 2, at room temperature, it's liquid in form. And 3, it's highly flammable. Now that last one is particularly important because people don't seem to understand just how dangerous that makes it near an open flame if not handled correctly. For example, back in July 2022, a man from Naples, Italy was having a barbecue when he decided to add a little fuel to the fire. Did he use firelights? Maybe a little extra paper or wood? Nope, this guy decided to pour alcohol on the flames. Here's a little science lesson for you kids. When a high enough proof alcohol in a stream meets a flame, it doesn't magically make the source of the fire any hotter. It sets the stream of alcohol on fire. In an instant, fire had traveled up the stream of alcohol to the bottle it was being poured from.
Molotov.
The thing blew up in his
Boom!
face.
Shakalaka.
The injuries he sustained were so severe, he didn't survive. But luckily, I like my tales of fatal idiocy well done. The Jägermeister.
Jaeger.
Jägermeister is an herbal liqueur.
Jaeger
which
Bombierstück.
56 herbs and spices that go into making it give it something of an acquired taste. And by that I mean, I only like it when it's mixed with Red Bull. I'm just classy like that. Still, at 35% alcohol by volume, it's pretty potent regardless. Well, over in a liquor parlor in South Africa, they decided to put the drink's potency to the test. They set up a drinking competition offering a prize of 200 rand, a little over $11, to anyone who could drink an entire 24-ounce bottle of the stuff. It's unclear whether they thought anyone would actually be dumb enough to attempt
Someone would attempt this.
Couldn't be done.
Anybody would attempt this.
Up to the plate.
Oh.
Not only did the winner down every last drop, he also did so in less than 2 minutes. He was awarded his 200 rand prize when all of a sudden he collapsed on the floor. But he wasn't just drunk or asleep, he was gone. Yeah, here's something I assumed I didn't need to explain. Alcohol isn't good for you in massive quantities. It's a toxin which can build up in the blood and literally poison you. In general, your body can process about 1 unit of alcohol per hour. After one drink, your blood will have an alcohol content of roughly 0.04%. After 6 drinks, that'd be around 0.14%. At this point, vomiting is not uncommon. After 15 drinks with a blood alcohol level of 0.3%, unconsciousness is inevitable. But after consuming an entire bottle of Jägermeister in just 2 minutes, our man's blood alcohol content would have shot up from 0% to around 0.44%. A fatal dose. Oh man, I can almost hear the frat boy saying he could have walked it off if only he'd had a couple of Red Bulls to chase it with. Honorable mentions.
Or maybe some water.
Okay, so there have been some pretty solid attempts to join the prestigious list of Darwin Award winners over the years, but the idiots in question have tragically survived.
Could have had some waters with it.
Generous, so to make sure they don't feel left out, here are a couple of honorable mentions to those who almost made the list with some certifiably moronic life choices. To start, we head over to Russia, where back in 2020 an influencer decided to make their birthday a memorable one by inviting some of their friends over to a pool complex they'd hired out. They spent a little time in the sauna, and to ensure the water was extra cold for their post-sauna swim, the influencer had ordered 55 pounds of dry ice, which they then dumped into the pool. Okay, pop quiz. Do you guys know what dry ice actually is?
Yeah.
No?
Not good.
Neither did the influencer. All they knew was that it was very cold, and when it met water, it produced a cool steam show effect, which would look great on their socials. But here's the thing. Dry ice is the solid form of carbon dioxide, which only stays solid at a temperature of
Dry ice.
109.
I thought it was ice cubes.
Above this, and without the right pressure conditions, it transitions straight into gas, without an immediate liquid stage. So dumping that much in a pool which was not a well-ventilated space released a lot of carbon dioxide. a gas humans famously cannot breathe. Several guests dived in and immediately began to choke. The influencer themselves and a few others managed to get out just in time.
Oh God!
3 guests suffocated, including the influencer's own husband.
Ooh.
Well, that's a birthday they'll certainly never forget. Although that's not the dumbest thing someone's done around a body of water. Back in July 2022,
I thought it was
Chief
ice
Minister of a
cubes.
North Indian state
Okay, that would make
visited the
sense.
holy
Ice cubes.
rivulet.
To make it more cold, right?
22 years
Ice
of
cubes. No,
Despite
let's
its
put
historical
dry ice to make it
significance, the rivulet
stronger.
had once been a sewer drain. But more than 20 years of community
But it makes us
gentrification
dumber
brought
for not
life.
knowing what dry ice
After years of a
is.
clean water campaign in the state, the chief minister was so keen to prove to everyone at this event that the Kali Vine was both clean and safe, he grabbed himself a glass of its water and drank it down. I really hope I don't need to tell you, but just because fresh water looks clean doesn't mean it's safe to drink. Waterborne infections like E. coli, parasites, and raw sewage can
E.
contaminate
coli.
precious-looking water sources.
E.
Which this chief minister
coli.
found out quickly.
He's like, wait a minute, what?
Media outlets reported that he was airlifted to a hospital with severe stomach cramps.
Mm.
He attempted to deny it, claiming it was a routine checkup.
I'm not sick.
I'm not
Look
sure
at
how
me,
many
I'm
people
healthy.
Emergency airlift for a simple checkup. Something smells off, though that might just be the Caliban. Ride or die.
Ride or
Now, I
die.
don't usually have favorites, but this
Ride or die.
Oh, it's just lacking so many brain cells, it's unbeatable in my opinion.
Yeah.
Back in 2015, a gentleman and his friend were visiting Cedar Point Amusement Park in Sandusky, Ohio.
Raptor.
They decided to get their adrenaline fix on the Raptor, a steel inverted roller coaster which whips riders around at a top speed of 57 miles per hour. As they were riding, our man in question realized his phone had fallen out of his pocket. Once the ride was over, he peered over into the restricted section and saw his phone lying near the coaster tracks. Completely ignoring the big "Do not enter" sign.
Do not enter.
The fence is constructed to keep people
Red
out,
sign.
and the fact
Stop
that he knew
sign.
he was currently
Danger
in
sign.
operation, having literally just been on it, our man hopped the fence and reached for his phone. To literally no one's surprise, he didn't even bother to check if another cart was coming, and so, as you've probably guessed, he was struck by an oncoming cart. Yep, that's got to your Darwin Award if ever there was one. Which of these winners did you think removed themselves in the most spectacular way?
Bro. All I can say to that is jumping into the last one.
Do you ever wonder if humanity will reach a point where we all become collectively enlightened? Like, we'll all just stop doing obviously dumb stuff one day and live out each of our lives as happy and healthy individuals? Well, today is not that day. Nor is that day coming anytime soon. Because we're on part 16 of this series.
16!
New here, we're looking at people who have removed themselves from the gene pool in ways that are so idiotic they prove that Darwin was right. So get your popcorn ready as we take a look at even more embarrassingly dumb ways people died.
Who's gonna get the trophy? Who's gonna get the reward? Who's gonna be famous
Bada boom.
for sheer
Before we dive into
stupidity?
this first one, I just need to check real quick. Nope, I'm not going insane. So here's a quick question. If you found some old unstable explosives on a piece of land near your home, what would you do? A. Call the authorities and alert them to the situation. B. Pick them up, cart them around, and attempt to bury them. I'll give you a few seconds to contemplate. Are we done? Cool. So the answer is obviously A, right? No one in their right mind would try to handle them, let alone bury them, unless they knew what they were doing, right? Right? Okay, good. I'm not going insane. Why did I ask? Oh, because back in 2004, a gentleman in Chiavenna, Italy, did just that. He discovered some old sticks of dynamite in an abandoned shack on some land near his vineyard. He'd had some experience of working with explosives before, so decided instead of calling the authorities, he could handle the situation himself.
I don't need the authorities. I got a brain. I know
For a long
things.
time and was sweating nitroglycerin.
Oh my
Highly
God.
unstable liquid component of this type of explosive.
It's ready. It's ready to
Unaware
blow.
of how volatile these explosives now were, our man set about attempting to bury them. He dug a 30-foot hole, carefully placed the dynamite in it, and then gently filled it in. However, when he tried to flatten the earth mound he'd created by patting it down, the compression triggered the dynamite. The explosion was so huge that it rocked the town of Chiavenna, and police rushed to investigate. They found our man torn to shreds, and he remained alive just long enough to tell them the story before receiving his Darwin Award. Got the hump.
Hey, he deserves
There's a
it.
special circle of hell for people who hurt animals, in my opinion. But there's another circle for those who pick on the wrong animal and lose, where they're mocked for all eternity. And that's the internet. Back in February 2023, the Brioshka Recreation Center in Omsk, Siberia, had a surprise guest for a children's event being held there, a Bactrian camel. That's the kind with 2 humps. The camel, however, was not as excited to be there. Its handler tried to drag it towards the event through a patch of snow outside the center, but the camel was having none of it. Getting increasingly frustrated, the handler resorted to violence, repeatedly striking the animal in the head. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever seen an adult Bactrian camel, but these things are huge. They're 6 foot tall at the shoulder and weigh around 1,000 pounds. And while they look pretty chill, they can become unstoppably aggressive. So picking a fight with one is not a smart move, as this guy quickly discovered. After landing the second blow, the camel suddenly responded by biting, mauling, trampling, and flinging the handler around like a rag doll, as he was obviously no match for the massive beast. After the handler stopped moving, the camel went back to being a typical Joe Camel, as if nothing had happened. Needless to say, after being pummeled by a beast more than 7 times his size, the handler didn't make it. So yeah, I guess the lesson here is treat your animals as you want to be treated. Especially animals much bigger than you that are prone to violence.
Well, I'm sure he learned his lesson somewhere.
YouTube's extreme prank community hasn't had the best rep in recent years. From creeps ignoring the all-important rule of consent to cases of child cruelty, it's pretty hard to upload an extreme prank that's entertaining, doesn't cross the line, and isn't faked for views. But the idea of staging an extreme prank isn't something that one YouTuber from Tennessee even considered back in 2021, which led to his super dumb demise. He and his friend decided to prank a group of people late one night by running at them in a parking lot wielding a butcher knife and pretending to rob them, with someone else nearby recording the incident. That doesn't sound like a prank.
Ha, we got him!
Now here's the thing. The group they were targeting didn't know that this was a prank. I'm guessing, so their fear came across as authentic on camera. But Tennessee is quite famously an open carry state, meaning citizens are allowed to carry firearms.
Oh boy.
Specifically handguns on their persons for self-defense purposes, which one of them was. So when the YouTuber brandished a big old knife at the group and declared his intent to rob them, the armed group member immediately took him out. And it's not clear how he thought this was going to end. Maybe he just really wanted to be a part of my Darwin Award series.
Probably.
At least now his prank has made it big on YouTube.
Hey, like I said,
Darkness, my old friend.
you do
Darkness
something.
is crime's best friend.
You do dumb things just to get noticed, and guess what? You did it.
Committing said crime, it turns out.
You want to get noticed that badly? Congratulations, you have achieved your dream.
A gentleman who lived on a caravan park in Brisbane, Australia.
Like, really,
It was
just...
late at night and very dark, so the pair thought they'd have...
It could have been like, run up to him, ha, gotcha.
They each pulled out a knife and stormed the caravan, which was pitch black inside. A huge scuffle occurred between the 3 men, but when the would-be victim managed to turn the light on, he couldn't believe his eyes. He was uninjured. His 2 assailants, however, unable to see, had impaled each other.
Wow.
One only just survived, but the other never made it to the hospital.
Wow.
I guess that's the last time either of them will be taken.
Like, what is going on? That's crazy. You see 2 people trying to break into your place, rob you, and they stabbing themselves because it's too dark.
Flipping your burgers and making your pizzas really don't make enough money. But in a bid to make more cash, one pair of fast food managers ended up getting way more than they bargained for. This was back in the year 2000, when the night and day managers of a Burger King in Indianapolis came up with a plan to stage a robbery of the store they worked for. The day manager would steal $4,000 in cash from the day's takings before tying up the night manager in the walk-in freezer and setting a small fire in a wastebasket. making it look like the robbers had also tried to burn the place down.
Uh-huh.
The fire alarm would go off, and when the fire brigade arrived, the night manager would tell them it was a robbery, and no one would think the pair of them had taken the money. This might have been a plan that worked if the day manager hadn't messed up. They set the wastebasket on fire, but it was barely a smolder, which didn't set off any of the fire alarms. It wasn't until the morning crew came in and the rush of air from the open door sparked the smoldering embers to burst into flames that the firefighters were called. And only then did they find the manager in the freezer suffering from extreme hypothermia. As you can guess, she didn't make it to the hospital. After realizing that the night manager's bindings were loose enough for her to have gotten free and that she could have escaped from the unlocked freezer, they began to suspect foul play.
Oh boy.
It wasn't long before they approached the day manager, who not only still had the cash on them, but had incriminatingly stashed it in a Burger King bag. Man, if you're going to be dumb enough to try a plan like this, at least be smart enough not to get caught. Cycle blame. Okay, cyclists of the world, listen.
Foolproof. No one will ever know.
That's no secret. We're much slower than them. Some of us take up way too much space on the road, and some even run red lights and ignore signs thinking they don't apply to us. If we want to improve our reputation, we need to do better. Starting with
Do a little pum pum.
Otherwise, you might end up like this next award winner. Back in 1997, a cyclist in Sorocaba, Brazil, put his Walkman headphones on and set off on his bicycle.
Oh
He
no.
was happily listening to his tunes, making his way
You
through
gotta
the city,
listen to your
and decided
surroundings,
take the
buddy.
shortcut to his destination. Absorbed in his music, he pedaled on, blissfully unaware of his surroundings, when all of a sudden he was knocked off his bike by an oncoming plane.
Whoa.
Yeah, the shortcut this guy had decided to take led across Sorocaba Airport's landing strip, and with his music blaring, he hadn't heard the twin prop.
There is no way you could not
He crossed its path
hear
at
a
exactly
plane
the wrong
coming.
time, and, needless to
With
say,
music on, you'd be
it's
able to
right.
hear
Well,
that.
there's at least one important lesson for all cyclists here. Not everything is a cycle.
Or feel that.
Up in flames. Here's a question. What do you use gasoline for? I bet most of you just said it's fuel, duh. But did you know as a petroleum-based product, it's also pretty good at dissolving oils, making it a decent degreaser. The only obvious issue is that it's also highly flammable, which is why it's not advised to use it as your go-to degreaser.
Oh my
That
god.
hasn't stopped
Oh my
science.
god.
Back in 1998, a woman in Texas was cleaning the tennis shoes she was wearing with gasoline to give them that bright white finish. If she'd used an ounce of caution, this would have been absolutely fine. Except she was doing it right next to a candle she had recently lit, which she accidentally knocked over.
Oh
All of a sudden, the
no.
flame ignited the spills of
Woo!
gasoline.
She's on fire. Look at her
Feet
dancing.
on fire, she panicked and ran to her neighbor's house, who rushed for her water hose. But as she did, the polyester dress the woman was wearing, a notoriously flammable material, also caught fire from the flame of the shoes. The neighbor eventually put her out, but not before our idiot joined the many Darwin Award winners before her.
Well, at least she's smoking hot.
Road signs and barricades are the bane of any car owner. One minute you're driving along, the next you need to turn around because the road is closed. Grr, it's infuriating.
Yeah.
Now
It be.
a law-abiding citizen, just take the L and try to find a detour, like 99% of normal people. However, there's that 1% of drivers that think, surely whatever they
Get out of the way!
apply to me, right? I'm special. Nothing bad will happen. to me.
Right? I'm
I
better
just
than
keep
you.
on driving.
I'm more important
That's
than
exactly
you.
what this next guy was thinking. Back in March 2018, New Jersey was in chaos. A recent storm had downed trees and power lines all over the place, so there was traffic snarling the roads and tailbacks everywhere you looked. Barricades were put up left, right, and center. However, one man who'd been asked by his father to come and shovel his driveway decided these barricades simply did not apply to him. He steered around a set of bright orange traffic cones that clearly blocked the road ahead of him and continued on his way. That was until a downed electrical wire
I can believe this.
was live and still buzzing with thousands of volts of electricity struck the car, zapping the driver, and setting the entire thing on fire. Oh man, if only there'd been something to warn him of the danger ahead. I don't know, like a...
You got people like that. I would believe this story. I would.
Be smart.
Be smart. Be you. Be responsible.
They swarm and they suck. Period. So if you do have to fuck with them, you better know what you're doing.
Right.
Or you could end up like this next award winner.
Now, a beehive? No, sir. Better call the expert on that.
Beehive from one of his orange trees. He could have hired a professional to take care of it, but he
Yup.
figured the easiest and cheapest way to be rid of them would be to burn the hive himself. So he
No.
put on his gloves, long pants, and long-sleeved garments before sealing everything together with tape so that bees wouldn't crawl.
Ta-da!
Then he put a plastic bag on his head and sealed it tightly around his neck so the bees wouldn't sting his face. And finally,
Yeah.
he went off to burn some bees. A few hours later, though, he hadn't returned. Worried, his wife went out to look for him, and she found him dead. But it wasn't from the bees. In fact, their hive was untouched. It turned out that the bag strapped to his head was efficient at keeping out the bees, the smoke, and the oxygen he needed to breathe.
Oh.
Yep, this idiot hadn't put any air holes in the bag and
I'm dying. I'm dying. I'm choking myself.
This story, yeah, don't fuck with bees.
Nope.
Buzzkill. If
Nope.
you legally own a gun, there's a good chance you've gone down to a firing range to practice your aim, where you can shoot a bunch of sensible, non-life-threatening targets. You know,
I mean, damn, I gotta try so hard.
Live electrical utility poles. Wait, hang on. That last one isn't found on any shooting range I've ever been to. And with a very good reason, as one Pennsylvania man discovered back in 2002. He and a few of his friends were practicing their marksmanship in a farm field by shooting at, you guessed it, a live electrical utility pole. Specifically, they were aiming at the glass electrical insulators lining the poles and keeping the wire suspended. Now, the good news is their aim was sharp enough to hit at least 6 of these insulators. The bad news was that as they hit the last insulator holding the live electrical wire in place, it fell down. Suddenly, our man became aware that the sun-scorched farmland they were on could catch fire, and so panicked, he grabbed the wire with his hands. Big mistake. Thousands of volts of electricity surged through his body, instantly ending him and fast-tracking his application into the coveted Darwin Award Hall of Fame.
He deserved that. He deserved that, ladies and gentlemen. You're gonna touch electrical wire, live wire, with your bare hands.
A super expensive gift.
Even if you wear gloves, I don't think that will help you at all.
Yeah, I can hear the collective sigh of regret emanating from around the world. These approaches may sound cringy, but they're nothing compared to what these next two award winners did. Back in 2004, 2 Taiwanese college students met up one evening, and after they'd had a little to drink, they both revealed they liked the same girl on campus.
Oh.
It was at this point things got heated, and so they decided to have a contest to see who between them would get the rights to pursue the girl. And how did they settle this? A nice safe game of rock, paper, scissors, maybe? No. Seeing as this was a matter of honor and dignity, they decided to joust. But instead of horses, they'd use their scooters. The rules were that they'd ride at each other full speed, and the first one to turn away would lose the contest. So without
So it was like almost like a game of chicken.
Straight at each other, topping out at 50 miles per hour, and crashed. Neither had the smarts to turn away, which cost both of them their lives. Ironically, they could have saved both their lives if they'd just talked to the girl. As it turned out, she hadn't been interested in either of them. And that just makes this pair of Darwin Awards all the shinier. Kitchen nightmares.
She was not even interested in neither of them.
It's so annoying. If you're lucky, you might
Those
remember
poor
that you forgot
fools.
to lock a window and be able to clamber in that way. But it's usually better to just wait for a locksmith to let you in. Otherwise, your impatience could have some real consequences, like what happened to this next Darwin Award winner. Back in 2004 in Wolfsburg, Austria, an incredibly inebriated gentleman returned home late one evening, only to discover he couldn't find his keys. No matter, he thought, because he could slip in through the kitchen window.
Don't worry, I got an alternate route.
It out, giving him just enough room to squeeze his head and part of his torso through. And that's when he got stuck. With both his legs off the ground and being a little drunk, he couldn't coordinate himself enough to push through. And then there was another complication. As he'd been struggling to get in, he'd accidentally turned on the tap below him, filling the kitchen sink with water. The more he struggled, the more he exhausted himself until he apparently fell asleep, still stuck in the window. Here, his head slipped into the water, and being as drunk as he was, he didn't wake up, and he drowned. He was discovered the next day, and to really make this a top-tier Darwin Award winner, as they were removing the body, the police found his keys in his pocket. Man, if he'd survived this ordeal, I'm pretty sure he would have died of embarrassment.
Yeah.
A bridge
But
too
hey,
far.
joke's on
Some
you.
serious kahunas to ride a motorbike. The
Yeah.
speeds, the road users, the lack of airbags. It's a risky way to travel. But even more so when you're a grade A idiot like this next guy was. Back in 2008, a Floridian gentleman dressed in swim trunks and sneakers was riding along when he noticed the Minnesota Key drawbridge ahead of him was beginning to open. Any sensible rider worth their salt would have slowed down and simply waited for the drawbridge to level again before crossing it, but not this guy. No, instead, clearly thinking he was in a Fast and Furious movie, decided
If
to
I go
show his
fast,
back.
I will make it.
So he increased his speed and shot
Yeah.
up. Unfortunately for him, drawbridge designers anticipate idiots just like this, and so build in safety measures to most drawbridges in the form of crossing guards. The guards dropped down before a man had a chance to hit the brakes.
You shall not
Like at
pass.
breakneck speeds and careening him over the side of the bridge. He hit the water, but the impact instantly wiped him out of the gene pool. Ironically,
Extreme BMX.
to the other side. Now, oddly satisfying. Firework fail.
Firework
A
fail.
lot of things you shouldn't do with a firework. Shouldn't
Right.
hold it while lighting the fuse.
Uh-huh.
You shouldn't plant it somewhere dangerous. You shouldn't aim it at people. A lot of pretty obvious don'ts there. But you know which one I
You
do.
got certain people that will do that.
Don't put it in your butt. And yet, here we are in Sunderland, UK, a place I can only assume is the Florida of England, back in 2006. It's November 8th, a few days after England's famous Guy Fawkes Night, where bonfires and fireworks are lit to celebrate the day Mr. Fawkes didn't blow up the Houses of Parliament. With a leftover firework, our award winner decided he would let this one off in style by lighting the fuse, lying down on the ground, and planting the firework twixt his cheeks. The incident compromised his junk and his ability to procreate, thus removing any more of his idiot antics from the gene pool. Well, if I didn't know any better, I'd say Sunderland was challenging Florida for the title of most chaotic place in the world. Some like it hot.
Why?
There's something
I
about
don't
the
even have
super
the energy to talk about that.
competitive
Just
endurance
why?
sports that you can't look away from. You want to watch a man run 200 miles in 48 hours? Of course you do. You want to see someone cycle 400 miles in less than a day? Absolutely. You want to watch someone step into a superheated hot box and stay in there for as long as possible?
Hey,
Hang on, what?
hey,
This
folks,
one is real?
just
It's
know
called
that
the World Sauna
you're gonna be
Championship?
like try to jump,
Yeah.
try to like
Back in
continue on
1999,
doing
the
One
World
Piece and
Sauna
all that.
Championship was an
Since
endurance
I
competition
didn't
on
really do it
Infinite.
last week,
Each year, many
gonna try to make up for it, right?
competitors would enter the hot box, which was an infernal 230 degrees Fahrenheit.
200.
In the boiling
All right.
point of water and hot enough to cause third-degree burns. Water was poured on the coals inside the sauna every 30 seconds, and competitors would attempt to outlast every other person in there, with their efforts only counting if they could walk out of the box unaided. Not only was this an actual official event, competitors had to sign a legal agreement promising not to sue the event organizers if they got injured. Although that wouldn't make a difference to one of the men who competed back in 2010. After spending 6 minutes in the hellish hotbox and outlasting every other competitor in there, the final 2 remaining competitors passed out and had to be dragged from the box. Both were covered in third-degree burns and blisters and were suffering from convulsions. One was transferred to the hospital where they revealed 70% of his skin was burned, his respiratory system was scorched, and his kidneys failed. He was put into a medically induced coma for 6 weeks before miraculously pulling through. The other guy wasn't so lucky. He passed mere minutes after being dragged from the box. And to really add the shine to this award, both competitors were disqualified. Well, hey, if you enter life-threateningly stupid competitions, I guess you win life-threateningly stupid prizes.
It ain't
Which of
that,
these stories do you think deserve the biggest Darwin Award?
bruh. I don't even think it's that doggone important. But I guess it was to where, hey, If I win, I can brag to my friends, right? Man. But hey, for those of y'all that be wanting me to check out the embarrassingly dumb ways people died, here it is right here. Like, I am officially caught up now to where now I have to wait for the next one to come out. But hey, even though I am doing shows, I am also going to be doing live reactions. You know, like I said, for the full game cutscenes. I'm sure you've probably seen that I did the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 cutscene and everything. Yeah, I did that live like elsewhere, but I brought it here. So still though, still gonna be doing the full game cutscenes and all the other type of cutscenes. There will be like live sport reactions. I am gonna be doing like wrestling, and might be jumping into other sports like maybe, you know, UFC, some type of way, football, some type of way. But hey, what was the dumbest way? What was the dumbest way a person died? Me, it was pretty much the guy that was gonna rob a gun store in the afternoon, and knowing there's a cop in there too. Yeah, but hey, hope y'all enjoyed the marathon, the dumb-a-thon as I call it. If you want to stay tuned to contents, live or not, stab the buttons down below, folks. You will see the next video. And also stay tuned for the Batman Arkham City, as that's going to be coming out this week. I had to get time to prepare, okay? Had to get time. But hope you have a good day though. Stay safe, and yeah, I will see y'all tomorrow. Live tomorrow.